Oh, cool. It's Lunar New Year. Welcome, everybody. Anyways, welcome to Disrupt TV. We're going to do our quick backroom discussion. We'll do some quick introductions from David, Michelle, then Debjani. And then, of course, we'll talk about what's going on. I'm Ray Wang here, and with my awesome co-host, co-founder, Vala Afshar, our awesome producer, Elle. And more importantly, we're here sponsored by Robots and Pencils. And we'll talk a little more about them after the introduction. So real quick, David, where are we calling in from, and what are we going to talk about today? Real quick, so our guests have some context.
Calling in from Reston, Virginia, and CEO Boyce and I will be talking a little bit about internal communication and in that digital world.
Very, very cool. Thank you. Michelle, where are we calling in from, and what are we talking about?
Calling in from Chicago, and I'm going to be talking about customer success.
Woohoo, CSM. All right, Debjani, where are we calling in from? And oh my God, tell us what happened. So.
Well, I'm calling in from Delhi, India, and yeah, we just had a little earthquake, but all good now. And I'll be talking about the reinvention of the extremely large Indian IT services and the kind of leadership that they have shown in this crisis.
Excellent. All right, with that, Elle, let's do the honors, and we will start the show. So.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Disrupt TV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at Disrupt TV Show. Send Ray, myself, or distinguished guests your questions live using hashtag Disrupt TV, and we'll do our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He is the best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business. And breaking news, this year he's coming out with a new book, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. We'll learn more about the new book in subsequent shows. He's a regular television, business, and technology news contributor on Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg. I see him every day on TV. He's also a global sought-after keynote speaker, and in my humble opinion, one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to Disrupt TV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with my awesome co-host, Vala Afshar. As you know, he's the #1 person to follow if you're a CEO, CIO, CMO around the world for inspirational comments and thoughts. He's also a keynote speaker himself. I see him on business TV and, of course, doing a lot of speeches and working with executives at all levels. With that, it's not about us. It's really about our awesome guests. Before we talk about that, I want to thank our sponsors, Robots and Pencils. But we do have someone very, very special and very, very influential coming in from Delhi. Who's our guest?
It's what an honor to have our next guest, one of my favorite people that I know, Debjani Ghosh, president of NASSCOM, National Association of Software and Services Companies. Debjani has been the president since 2018, a veteran of technology industry. Debjani is the 5th president of NASSCOM and the first woman at the helm of this 3-decade-old organization. Debjani is a firm believer in the power of technology and enhancing lives and livelihoods, leveraging it for societal good. I have witnessed this firsthand. Debjani was instrumental in developing Think Digital, Think India strategy aimed at establishing India as a hub for digital talent and innovation. As a NASSCOM president, Debjani actively works with industries and governments to accelerate the growth of industry and strengthen India's position as the hub of innovation and digital talent. Before joining NASSCOM, Debjani was the first woman to lead Intel India and Manufacturers Association for Information Technology. In 2018, Debjani was facilitated by the President of India under the auspices of First Ladies Program, which honors exceptional women pioneering their respective fields. During the most volatile pandemic 2020, Debjani has been honored by Vogue as the Tech Leader of the Year 2020. Debjani was also listed among India's most powerful women in tech by Business Today. Sincerely, one of the most powerful persons that I know, period. Debjani is a wonderful follow on Twitter at Debjani_GHOSH _. Welcome, Debjani, to Disrupt TV.
Thank you so much, Vala. Thank you so much, Ray and Vala. You're just so kind. One of my favorite people, and you're always so kind.
Thank you, Debjani.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And let's really help our viewers understand what NASSCOM is, how it got started, and how you got involved with NASSCOM, and give them some context before we talk about some of the other wonderful things that have been going on.
Sure. So, the NASSCOM story is a very interesting one. NASSCOM got set up in the late 1980s, around 88, 1988, if I remember right. At which point in time, the Indian IT industry was a fledgling industry, less than 100 million, maybe around 50 million. But it had leaders who had huge dreams. It had leaders like F.C. Kohli, who set up TCS and
Wow.
known as the
TCS.
father of Indian industry, Narayan Murthy. These leaders were giants. And they all believed that software and services would be the future of technology and that India could become a global superpower if we played our cards right. And this is where real leadership comes in. You put your ego aside and you start thinking about what can you do? What's the best way to achieve the goal? And they realize that if they tried it individually, this would be a very difficult task. But if they could all get together and work together, this goal could absolutely be achieved. So that was how NASSCOM started. 40 such leaders came together. A person who was instrumental in setting this up was Harish Mehta, who's still around and still sort of the father figure in NASSCOM. And they set it up with the simple goal of making India a global player. And today, the Indian IT industry is a 190 plus billion industry across 80 countries, one of the largest employers in India, 4 million plus people. But the one thing that hasn't changed is that power of collaboration. NASSCOM brings together the most fierce competitors. But when
Yeah.
they come together, in fact, people call us the coalition of competitors, which I love. We bring together the most fierce competitors and then we make them work for the industry to solve the problems of the industry. It's a pretty unique concept. And when I had finished 21 years with Intel, and in the last 5 of which was in India, and I fell in love with India. I fell absolutely in love with India, and I realized that given that my passion was about the impact of technology, I'm not an engineer. So what gets me is really what technology can do for people. There was no better place than India. India is the best playing ground for technology and to push the envelope on technology. So I was looking for something to do which would allow me to have a bigger impact with respect to deployment of technology in India. And thankfully, at that point, NASSCOM was looking for a new president. So stars got aligned, and last 3 years have been just a dream come true for me.
It's an
Congratulations.
amazing organization. I have witnessed NASSCOM conferences in New York, in Mumbai. I'm good fortune of pre-pandemic attending 50 plus conferences a year, and the level of influence. One by one, you meet titans of industry, and you're shaking hands, and you're having dinner, and you're having intimate conversations. And these are literally titans of industry. And it's not just the Indian economy. I'm talking global companies. I'm talking, the top leaders from Accenture, IBM, Google, you name it. So it's remarkable the amount of influence that NASSCOM has. And speak of influence, the tech industry in India was much like the rest of the world, had to overnight move from predominantly an on-campus model to nearly 100% remote model in a light switch. So as a trusted advisor, as a consortium of thought leadership at the highest levels, can you share some insights in terms of the impact of the pandemic, creating this hard pivot to a decentralized digital-only model that frankly, for some businesses was, a Herculean effort?
Yeah, well, one interesting fact, Vala, in India, there used to be a regulation. It still is, but it's changed now. But there used to be a regulation called OSP, which did not allow most of our companies, at least companies that dealt with data, voice, etc., to have their employees work out of the campus. So remote work was legally not possible. So when the pandemic struck and we were getting into this whole lockdown mode, one of the big things that NASSCOM did was just work hand in hand with government to make them realize that we don't have an option of shutting down. If we shut down, everything shuts down. Hospitals shut down, government shut down, banks shut down. So we don't have the option of shutting down. And the government, I have to say, really partnered with us every step of the way. The first thing was getting our industry to be called out as essential services, because technology was pretty much the lifeline for survival in the lockdown. So calling us out as essential, and then giving us relaxations around these regulations that existed, OSP, etc., so that we can move not just people, but we had to move assets. We had to move 4 million people and around 2 million assets, laptops, desktops, whatever have you, printers, to their homes. We had to invest significantly in cybersecurity as an industry so that people working from homes could keep their clients' businesses safe. So all of this was done in a matter of like 10 days. I don't think any of us slept a wink during those 10 days. All of this was done because the central government very quickly changed the law. Then we had to work with state by state governments, municipal districts, cops. It was just completely crazy. But this is where, again, the power of collaboration came to play. Everyone got together. So it wasn't one company, a TCS or a Wipro, fighting for themselves. Everyone got together and we were all fighting for the industry. And in all this, while all this was happening, I remember there was a lot of concern that, a lot of analysts were writing in the papers that Indian IT is dead. There is no way they're going to be able to survive this, right? And we wanted to send out a message to our customers, to the world out there, that no, we are not. And I remember as we were having these discussions, our Prime Minister took out a tweet. He tweeted about the commitment of the government to Indian IT, and our ministers followed, etc. And what a difference that made, because everybody knew that the industry had the government support, the government had our back, right? It made a huge difference. So yeah, and one part of it was just moving 99% of our workforce, literally 99% of our workforce, to work from home. But then came the other issues: employee engagement, mental health. A lot of Indian homes are not meant for work from home. So how do you resolve these issues? And once again, Vala, I'm just so proud of the industry, because every leader came together to say, okay, here's what I have learned. Here's my best practice, so that we could then start sharing all of that. Large, small, big companies, startups. Our startups were going through such a turmoil, and a lot of these learnings were able to help them too. So yeah, it literally took a village to make this happen. And this is where the power of collaboration just came into place so beautifully.
Well, keep in mind, your villages are not that...
happened. Sorry, with that transition, would it have happened in 10 days if NASSCOM wasn't in place? And I know you're not going to talk about NASSCOM getting credit, but I just feel like having this consortium that brings all of these major companies and major government officials, all of the events that I've participated with NASSCOM in attendance includes, highest level government officials who are making decisions that impact the entire country. I would assume that the role of NASSCOM, bringing that emphasis of essential workers and ability to change laws, to adjust quickly, was instrumental in making this pivot.
See, NASSCOM's the glue that brings them all together.
Yeah.
And it's not me. It's the association. It's the people, right? We're the glue that brings everyone together. And without people coming together, without collaboration, none of this would have happened.
Right.
No, it's a great point. I mean, a lot of our clients and a lot of people we work with also were in that mix and just trying to get VPN set up and, get a PC shipped out of the company. Like it was unheard of. Like people were taking their, computers home, right. And making sure they had a connection. And it was quite a chaotic time. But it turned out that the Indian IT industry bailed out the rest of the world while they were in the middle of a pandemic. And I think people will not forget that. So that's something big. And this is really talking about leadership in crisis. I mean, you're experiencing it right now, and you've seen the leaders step up to the plate. But from your point of view and from what you've seen, what does leadership in crisis look like to you?
It's something that you have to trust. I think that's the most important thing. I've just interacted with so many fascinating leaders. I mean, I've known them, they're friends, but in the crisis, what I realized is they all share certain common traits. And the first one is they can be trusted with our lives, literally with our lives. And it came out so strongly in the crisis. Because I don't think if you don't have the trust, then honestly, nothing else matters. So that was the first thing. They're people who really command trust, who can be trusted. I think the second thing I found was a sort of, a forward-looking vision. These were the people who were saying, the past is the past. We have a whole future to look forward to, and we are going to create this future. So don't give up. Don't lose hope. We're going to, this is an opportunity for us to rebuild together, and we can rebuild better. So, it's very forward looking, which I loved about the way they created these stories. The third thing to me was, just what I saw, and I saw it really magnified, amplified in 2020 was humility. Just, saying that, listen, guys, I don't have all the answers. I don't know how this is going to play out. So leaders were standing up and saying, I really don't know this, but, we have to figure it out, or this is how we're going to work on it. And that was a very, very different thing for me to see, because you see them on a pedestal and you sort of see them as knowing everything, but they came down. And I think humility, authenticity, became extremely, these are buzzwords we are used to, but I think 2020 was then when they became really very, very real. And I saw leaders get connecting with customers and employees like they had never done before. And I keep telling them as I talk to the leaders, do not give up on Zoom, and do not give up on even when you go back, because thanks to it, your employees have seen a lot more of you than they would have ever seen in the past. You have been listening to your employees a lot more than you would have. So I think they took the time, and same for customers. And I think last but not the least, I would say, just resilience. That all of us fell in 2020 in some way or the other, right? But being able to fall forward and being able to, get up and dust it off and say, let's move along and get people along. But that's what leadership looked like to me in 2020. And I loved it. I hope we do not lose that.
Absolutely. We've had a number of IT industry leaders from India on our show. We had the president of Wipro talking about keeping their kitchens going in their headquarters, even though there were no employees in the buildings, so that they could feed 6 million of the community, and shipping food, and also
all
community near the campus. All of them, exactly. So it's
I think
amazing.
they made it much bigger than their business.
Yes.
They all made this much bigger than the business. From feeding people to using campuses to set up safe quarantine zones for people, because a lot of people could not quarantine at homes.
Right.
It was just amazing how these companies,
Absolutely.
At one point, we had over 15 companies, Indian MNCs, 15 companies that got together, put their best engineers on the job under NASSCOM, and they worked with us to create a complete end-to-end solution that our governments could use at the height of COVID to track and to track hospital usage, to track to do the contact tracing, etc., etc. A complete package that was given free of cost to several state governments to use, created collaboratively by over 15 companies.
That's amazing. My final question to you, Debjani, again, as the president of NASSCOM, the most influential consortium of technology leaders in India and abroad, how has the pandemic changed your agenda? You have a big show coming up, big conference coming up. You have fireside chats with some of the CEOs of the largest companies in the world. As you look forward to this new normal, we're entering, year 2 of the pandemic. How has the NASSCOM agenda adjusted to this distributed digital construct that's now the future of work and society as a whole?
I believe this is an opportunity for us to create the next norm,
Right.
to work together to really create the rules of the next norm. And I do believe that since we have the opportunity to rebuild, we can correct a few of the wrongs of the past. We can build the future to be much more sustainable. We must build the future to be much more inclusive. So we have the opportunity to correct some of these wrongs. And as the tech industry, I honestly believe that we don't have an option but to lead this charter. We have to do it. I mean, it's our technology that's going to be used to change the future, to create the future. So we have to lead. And therefore, as NASSCOM, I think the first thing is defining the parameters of future of work. That's one of the big priorities we have now. What does it look like? What does hybrid mean? How does this entire thing play out? And as we build it out, how do we ensure that the new work models or the hybrid work models are going to be much more inclusive? They're going to be much more sustainable, much more secure. So how do we build these things into these work models? That's number one for us. And I think the second big priority for us is we need to ensure there is a framework created for responsible build and use of tech. I think it's going to be critical. It's going to be critical given the role technology is playing in our lives today. And I don't think we can leave it just to government to figure out what regulation should be. This has to be a joint effort. This has to be industry and government working together. So I would say that those are sort of the two biggest things that we are focused on right now.
Terrific.
This is wonderful.
Terrific.
Thank you so much. We're here with Debjani Ghosh, president at NASSCOM. You can follow her on Twitter at Debjani_Ghosh. And more importantly, catch the NASSCOM conference February 17th through 19th. It's going to be happening, the NASSCOM Technology and Leadership Forum. I believe it's the 29th year. Is that correct? So
29th year, and it's going to be opened by the Prime Minister.
I see. All right. Modi will be,
Congratulations.
Modi will
Amazing.
be opening up the, congratulations. So thank you so much and good luck. And thanks for being with us so late in the evening.
Thank you, Debjani.
Thank you so much. Lovely talking to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. What a privilege, Ray. One of the smartest senior executives that I know, and NASSCOM is clearly one of the most influential bodies governing the future of IT globally, not just India. Speaking of brilliant executives, our next guest is Michelle MacCarthy, Global Vice President of Customer Success at Unit 4. Over the past 17 years, Michelle has worked in business to consumer marketing within retail and nonprofit space and the B2B SaaS and tech space, leading global customer success organizations. Michelle has helped to build and scale customer success functions and evangelize customer-first mindset, which we're going to learn about throughout complex transformations. Michelle has been equal parts boots on the ground in implementing game-changing tools and driving growth and retention, as well as strategic initiatives that amplify voice of the customer and building teams and culture that are set up to win. Welcome, Michelle, to DisrupTV.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Hey, we're excited to have you. And it's one of our favorite topics. I remember kicking it with Nick Mehta, sitting somewhere in Palo Alto, talking about the future of customer success, where customer success management was going. It's like, I'm going to join this startup and we're going to like revolutionize this world talking about customer success management. And I was like, really? Like, when's this going to happen? Right. And suddenly, next thing we know, it's everything. Every cloud company starts with CSM. Every cloud company worries about these metrics. So what's your philosophy around customer success? You've seen it from both the B2B and B2C side, and this field is evolving rapidly.
It is. Well, I really want to know what shoes Nick was wearing when you met with him, but we can talk about that later. He's always got his fashion on point. But no, I mean, customer success to me is really more of an ethos, not a department. You know, it's become that critical growth engine and secret sauce for companies that are looking to ensure that their customers are deriving value and quantifiable outcomes from their products and solutions. You know, it's not just about creating happier customers, although we certainly want that. It is about making sure that we're with them all along their journey every step of the way.
I think, sorry. Ray, you're on mute.
We're definitely seeing that. It's one of the big topics that people are having. I mean, it's one of the challenges really of trying to figure out what is that customer journey, because it's not linear. So sorry about that. Go ahead, Val.
I'm really glad to hear that it's a philosophy. As someone who I was a chief customer officer before I joined Salesforce, and I would always remind my peers that customer service is in a department, and success is a philosophy. For us at Salesforce, customer success is our number 2 core value after trust, and only 2 out of 4 core values. And the field of customer success was evolving rapidly throughout 2019, pre-pandemic. And then, once in a lifetime event took place last year, and we're still through it. Can you talk about the philosophy in terms of customer success and how it's evolved, given this new normal that we've experienced, since last year in the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, customer success is continuing to change. And I think, it's become, like we said, the cornerstone and really a critical business function in any industry that's looking to create exceptional customer experiences. And it's one of the key places that companies are continuing to invest heavily in. And I think we saw that, as we went into the pandemic, and certainly now, and, as we are starting to hopefully emerge from some of that. I think we'll continue to see expanded remit in the space of customer success and helping to uncover more white space and expansion with our customers. But in terms of, what we've done, really customer success needs to be rallying around their customers with everyone in the current environment. And just like all of us, and, a lot of what we just heard on the last talk that really resonated with me is, that trust and making sure that customers are feeling heard, feeling cared for, and feeling always connected. So whether that's focusing on building more community offerings for them, online communities where they can network with their peers, sounding board, understand best practices, and really where they have found success in their business. And also from a customer success standpoint, making sure that we continue to be proactive with our customers, sounding boarding with them, being empathetic and open to new ways and creative solutions for their business, right? And solutions that may not, cost more for those customers, right? Things that hopefully are helping them work within what they already have to better adopt and utilize the technology that's already in play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing this big shift. And when we think about those communities, that's one of the areas where, seeing customer success, communities, people helping each other out, really coming together, especially, given what's been happening now. When we think about this future of customers in general going to 2021, what shifts are happening, right? I mean, does the customer success manager and customer success management change from its current role of kind of being outside of sales, but outside of service and sitting in that little in-between zone? Or does it take a different kind of role of prominence as well in terms of what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there's 3 kind of key areas I see in terms of the future with customer success, one is, and it's becoming more and more important now, we're all feeling it, it's that continued focus on onboarding, training, and knowledge transfer in order to ensure that they can realize value right away, and get the most significant value, right, based on those new services and features. Also, making sure that we're expanding new ways of working with customers. Folks like at TSIA and Gainsight, right, great thought leaders in the space. I think that there's lots of new dynamic models that are coming into play with customer success where leaders were looking at kind of the traditional high, mid digital touch, which is still very, very much prominent and a great way to go to market. In fact, it's a very similar way that we go to market at Unit 4. I think that we're going to continue to see other dynamic ways of going to market with other support functions within the organization as we put customer success at the heart, and as the customer centricity continues to play out within organizations where everybody understands the role they play all along the journey.
I got to give my friend John Ragsdale a shout out. Yeah, he's definitely one of those. I actually worked for him. He hired me into Giga Forster back in the day. So definitely folks pushing that out there.
Very cool.
So,
very cool.
So TSIA.
TSIA, yes. I have the good fortune of learning from Fortune 500 clients here at Salesforce. And I think without exception, every engagement at some point touches safety. How do we bring, and these are large companies, so large enterprise, how do we bring our stakeholders, customers, partners, employees safely back to a hybrid environment? So identifying, isolating, contact tracing, being able to, so almost every company is thinking like a health company. Many of these Fortune 500 have chief medical officers on board, including my company. So the culture of companies is, because of the pandemic, is leaning towards safety as a brand pillar. Regardless of how good your product or service, if you can't protect the safety of your stakeholders, it could really tarnish your brand. So how much do you see company culture impacting the revolution of customer success where, I didn't even know what contact tracing was a year and a half ago. So this rapid knowledge transfer and understanding of how to lean into technology, process, and talent to create a healthy environment. So I think the definition of success is changing given the environment we're part of. Can you talk to us about cultural transformation in terms of shaping the new normal when we define success for our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Culture is so critical, as you said, to driving a customer-centric culture throughout the organization. And when companies take care of their employees, and we've heard this from folks like Richard Branson and others, but when companies are taking care of their employees and employees are coming to work, they feel valued, they enjoy the work that they're doing, they feel like they're making an impact, that's really going to translate then to that customer experience and the way that they work with customers. Companies create a great customer culture when they ensure that they're putting the voice of the customer really at the heart of everything we do. So, at Unifor, we have a voice of customer council. We bring the feedback back from our NPS surveys, from our CSAT, from everything that we do. And then we don't just, it's very cyclical. We need to make sure we're closing that feedback loop with customers. So I think, our culture kind of soup to nuts is about making sure that when we hear something from the customer, it's a bias to take action and make sure that they understand that what the outcome is going to be within our organization.
That's great feedback. No, being able to action the feedback from customers, that closed loop, I think, is critically important. I often find that companies are mature in capturing feedback, but perhaps not so mature in terms of closing the loop. And that's really that's scoring when you're in the red zone. To get that touchdown, you got to get the feedback part right. Absolutely, great feedback.
Yeah, no, and a lot of this also internal culture, right? I mean, what has to be there for customer success to, be there? Like when you're looking at customer success managers, there are probably certain traits, certain things that they've done in the past. I know a lot of people are interested in getting into that role. It's a very exciting role inside SaaS organizations, but also in companies that have subscription business models. They're definitely pumping in, looking for the right type of talent. Like, what are some good traits that people should be thinking about? And for those out there thinking about jumping into the customer success field?
Yeah, I mean, aside from looking for people that are all awesome at working with people and customers, I
gotta like people first. Yes.
Yeah, you gotta like people first. I think, definitely looking for people that are curious, people that like to peel the onion and ask the deeper, more probing questions, understand customer pain points. What are their jobs? What are their challenges? And, maybe not solution in the moment, right? People that are active listeners and can really take in what they're hearing and then be able to kind of step back, work with all of the right resources to be able to bring back thoughtful solutions to the customer. I would also say people that are resilient. I think if there's anything we've learned over the last year, it's that change is the new normal, and making sure that, and change is the only constant, right? And I think that we just want to make sure that customer success, you very quickly become the hub of the organization. You're really there to bring all the players together, make sure you can arrive at a solution that drives the most outcomes for the customer. So I think again, just looking for people that are resilient, that are curious, that can challenge and are change agents to be able to influence throughout the company is very important.
Our survey, we do annually a survey at Salesforce called State of the Connected Customer. We survey, I think it was 15,000 respondents, B2B, B2C around the globe. And on average in 2020, individuals would engage with brands on average across 10 channels. Mm-hmm. And we're forecasting it could be as much as 15 channels moving forward. That's a big number. Whether it's your web, your mobile app, social messaging, all sorts of newsletters, events, virtual events, so on and so forth. We did shift to decentralized digital only starting in April of last year and through most of 2020. How do you ensure that when you have all these channels and a shift towards more digital engagements, that you maintain the same KPIs, the same brand promise as you shift from more of an analog in person to more of a digital only? How do you advise companies to recognize that they need to maintain consistent quality across all the channels that they offer engagement opportunities so that you have a consistent experience as you engage with clients?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think, making sure that the journey mapping has been done, as I've come into Unit 4 and really just joined about 4 months ago, one of the first things that we did was get going on customer journey mapping and making sure that all of the various areas of the company understand, and we have an aligned kind of RACI model right across the organization of who's being involved, right from everything from when the customer signs on the line all the way through ultimately getting their implementation completed, making sure that they're realizing value through their success planning, and making sure ultimately that they become customer champions and that they renew. I think making sure that at every touch point we understand who's reaching out, how many times, and how we're collecting that data and connecting that data, right? Because there's so many places to be continuously bringing the data in, as you said earlier, but it's really about how do we share that across the organization, and then how do we feed back that data in a way that's meaningful to the customer's business. So, I think everybody being aligned and understanding their role in that really plays a huge part, and the customer mapping exercise is a critical component to that early on.
What you just said, the journey mapping, map to roles and accountability, the RACI model, there were golden nuggets of wisdom in that first sentence. So people who are watching, look up these terms if you don't know them, because it's absolutely sage advice. Sorry, Ray. Yeah, there is a level of precision and discipline that needs to go through consistently managing an omni-channel, delivering a consistent experience. And understanding the stakeholders along the journey is super. It's almost like running a 4x100 relay, handing a baton to someone else and making sure every leg of the race is run properly for the team to win. And at any point, if somebody drops the baton, game's over. Sorry.
Man, that's such a good analogy. I feel like I'm running a race.
Yeah, no. In the world you're in, customer success, as you know, it's not a destination. You're always running.
Yeah,
you're always right. Yeah, that's why the grit part and persistence comes into play. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, think about your onboarding, your activation, trying to drive, renewal rates up, trying to drive down CACs. I mean, it's customer acquisition costs for those following. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not easy, right? And this is something that's important. And a lot of it might come from your background as well. Share with us your background, like how you got from, being in a role as the customer, being in other areas in the B2C world, and working with partners now today and vendors to focus on where CX is going and customer success management. So how does that inform in how you view the world? So.
Yeah, no, I mean, early days, I spent most of my time on the client side. So in B2C marketing for a variety of large retail companies, and even starting, earlier on before that on the sales floor of J.Crew, I think about everything I've ever done has been around servicing customers, ensuring that they are surprised, delighted all along the journey. And so it was very natural progression for me moving from the client side in various marketing roles, from pricing and promotions and strategy, to eventually working for a mobile marketing company where it was kind of my first flavor of customer success in the SaaS world. And I adapted very quickly to it because coming from the client side, I had already kind of been in their shoes, and I knew how to be an extension of that team and a trusted advisor, and beyond just what I was doing within the mobile marketing space, was able to kind of have that translate all across their business from a marketing perspective. And then I've just continued to kind of grow and adapt within customer success, from outcomes to, moving from more of a client engagement manager to a head of customer success at companies like Vibes, and then Flexera, and now Unit 4. So I think, I've always enjoyed connecting the dots, helping uncover pain points, and finding solutions for customers. I think if you're a people person and you're somebody that enjoys working with customers, it's kind of built within your DNA. So yeah, it's evolved over time, but I love it.
It's an incredibly rewarding space. Because you can see tangible results when you do it well. When you become a trusted advisor, when customers come to you with seeking advice beyond just business and building their tech investment thesis. When I think of future of customer success management, I think about companies being able to mature in terms of how they measure customer effort, using technologies like machine learning and AI to be able to predict and anticipate effort. It becoming more mature in understanding rate of adoption. So is the customer getting the full return on investment in the solutions that they're buying? Most customers, even the most advanced customers, in my opinion, in the enterprise space, are probably using less than 10% of what the platform offers. So the consumption gap keeps getting wider and wider. Their usage versus ability of the solution keeps growing. And so I think success is making sure your customers have great adoption and use of technology. I think of social promoter score versus net promoter score, changing the question from would you recommend to have you recommended to whom, and did it result in business? So as the world becomes more decentralized, more social, we should be able to anticipate these levels of advocacy without having quarterly or annual surveys. It should be in real time with tone and sentiment analysis. So this is what I think of customer success management in the future. Are there any other areas that excite you about what CSM would look like maybe 3, 5, 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you just said is extremely exciting, and being able to connect all the data together. As I mentioned earlier, with Gainsight, we are actually, that's one of the tools that we've purchased and that we're utilizing, which is really allowing us to better uncover a lot of the health metrics that would allow us to dig deeper into adoption and utilization and length of stay and all the different things that you want to understand as a customer success manager, so that you can continue to push customers to better adopt and better use more of the platform, so they're getting more value faster. I think also some of the different customer success models that I talked about, and the continuous kind of expanded remit of customer success is exciting, because I think organizations are realizing that customer success managers are talking to customers all the time. And so it's just very organic for us to be able to uncover, the opportunities, to be able to find new references and advocates for a number of different places and play. So I think what's exciting to me is that I think what we're just starting to see now is scratching the surface of what this discipline can become. And I think that just continuing to work within the industry and get more data at our fingertips and drive more voice of the customer throughout organizations, it's going to just continue to grow, and we're going to be able to help customers even more than we can today.
I love that. Improving decision velocity based on data maturity. That's at the heart of it. Absolutely. 100% agree. 100%. Sorry, Ray.
We're here with Michelle MacCarthy, Global Vice President, Customer Success at Unit 4. She's pioneering in customer success. You can follow the company Twitter handle at Unit 4 Global, and you'll be seeing a lot more of them in North America the next year. So thanks a lot for being on the
Michelle,
show.
You're terrific.
And, happy
Thank
Friday.
you so much for having me. Happy Friday. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks so much. You were terrific. Ray, my head is spinning. And it's not going to get easier with David. So this is awesome. This is why it's our favorite. It's not going to get easier, because get ready to have your mind expanded even some more. David Gang, CEO and co-founder of Brightspot. Brightspot believes technology should enable content-focused teams to work smarter, faster, and more seamlessly to move businesses forward. Brightspot helps companies transform their business content and digital experience by creating enterprise application at scale, and I love this, astonishing speed. Trust me, speed is the most important currency in the digital economy. David's guiding Bright Spot to become one of the fastest growing and most innovative product development companies in the digital experience space. Prior to Bright Spot, he was the Chief Technology Officer at WebMD. And before that, David held positions at Executive Vice President, AOL Products, where he was responsible for product strategy and product development for AOL services, AOL brands, and AOL web properties. A big job. You can follow David on Twitter at GangEROO, GANGEROO. Welcome, David, to DisrupTV.
Thanks, Vaughn. Thanks, Ray. Glad to be here. It's Gangaroo. Just a
Gangaroo.
I've just kept it around for you.
That's terrific.
It's legendary, I hear, but we'll have that from another discussion. But we're talking about digital experiences and digital transformation playing a role, and we always talk about it in an external way. Never talk about it as an internal communication strategy. You looking at this in a different approach. So talk about it as an internal strategy as opposed to what's commonly thought of as an external strategy.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially with the other two speakers as well, is when you look at 2020, it was really the place that you have to look at how you're talking to your employees. Your employees are in fact the people you want to have be the biggest brand loyalists. You want them; they're the most important stakeholders in the company. They're ones that are going to build that relationship with your customers. And in 2020, they all of a sudden became mega dispersed, like everybody was everywhere. And a lot of companies have always had this central place of HR documents, training material, company policies, but there aren't that many that have thought about it as true customer experiences and wanting to make sure that they could measure the happiness and success of their employees through the continued dialogue that they should be having with each other, with the all-stars of their company, with the executives of their company, and just building up that ongoing brand loyalty that's necessary with any stakeholder. And certainly the most important stakeholder you have is the people that are carrying your badge and talking about your company every day.
Very well said.
I saw, I'm trying to remember the VC, he was a prominent venture capitalist. I saw on my Twitter feed say every company is a media company, and they just need to realize that. I tend to believe that. I believe that when we talk about journey mapping and customer success, and you're looking at scenario plans, you're building models, and at some point, that moment of truth, you need to deliver value, and that value often comes through content, whether it's internal stakeholders or external. What are your thoughts about, as again, and even more so when you're decentralized digital, companies building that muscle of developing the right content to the right persona at the right channel at the right time in order to create value at the speed of need? And you don't dictate the speed of need, it's your stakeholder, whether it's your external or internal customer. What are your thoughts about really companies building that muscle, what that you would typically see in a media company?
I think that's 100% correct. I think that's exactly what the opportunity is for companies, is to realize that all of that energy that's gone into building great digital experiences to talk about or sell your product, whether that's to a consumer or to another business, millions and millions of dollars go into that. And then you take it to the next level, which is, how am I talking to my employees? And that always just gets a step down because you've just dialed in on talking to your customers. And, a few years ago, companies like Coca-Cola and J&J pioneered this whole idea of content storytelling just about the company, not just a brochure website, but let's make the corporate websites media experiences. And Coke was one of the first ones to do that. J&J has done a fabulous job of that. Now you got to go to the next level, which is we should be doing that for employees. We should be talking to our employees in a way that they embrace and love all of the media brands that they look at every single day. So whether it's a social brand, a traditional media brand, a broadcast brand, you get that loyalty to those, and that's where you go for your information. That's where you go to get connected with the rest of the world. And your corporation should, be part of that experience.
Yeah, no, that transmedia storytelling was very, very effective, right? And totally missing in the market before that. And you're saying doing that internally with good content is one way to do that. So
absolutely. And I don't think it's just content. It is a multi-channel approach, right? Because it involves your, the executives of global companies coming, talking about themselves and what they do, and touching their employees. It takes the leaders of that. It takes the brainchilds and the brilliance that exists in every company about new things that they're doing and researching, whether that's a food product or a vaccine or an automobile. You got to talk about those things, and because we all want to be better and think about what the coolness is about what we do. And then you want to talk about the regular stories of the people that work every day and just add real value to your customers. So I think it's not just that storytelling, traditional storytelling, but it is the 360 storytelling that you're going to get from employees, leadership, reaching out to the community, things that people are doing in their communities that are part of them just being somebody every day that's contributing to your company.
Actually, just to jump in real quick. So you're saying brand storytelling, DAM, commerce, CMS, everything's coming together, microsites all into one for the employee.
It has to. It absolutely has to. If you want to maintain, you talk about things like net promoter scores, like the best promoter you have is the people that work for your company. Those are the people that own your brand, believe in your brand. Whether they're
maybe the employee promoter score is going to be the new metric. Well, we've coined it here. EPS.
No, absolutely.
It's the new metric. And so when you think about that, historically, it's been a technology decision. Like, what technology do we need for our internet? Where are we going to store our stuff? What kind of LMS do we need? That's what the traditional thought process has been. But it's not that anymore. It is all of those technologies coming together with a team that's been empowered to drive a successful media company inside your business. Just to sort of steal your concept of it being a media company, because that's really what it is. I've got to tell that story, and I've got to use every vehicle that I need to communicate back and forth with my employees.
Yeah,
so
Gary Vaynerchuk.
Take the media company thing. I don't know where you got it from, but I'll take it and I'll use it myself.
I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
It was a VC, and it'll come to me. But yeah, it was a VC, and I do think that I do think that you have to think like a media company, because when I think of stories, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's always about someone else. When I think of a narrative, it's open-ended. There isn't a destination, and it's very inclusive. I think some of the best storytellers are actually sharing a narrative. And when I think about the pandemic, and I think about the next normal or the new normal, or this period of uncertainty that we're going through, there are no experts about the future. So you really have to shape a narrative of what you think based on trends, based on regression analysis, based on expert input. And I think successful media companies shape a narrative. They don't necessarily have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's more of an inclusive model. And I do think to build employee commitment and advocacy, you have to buy into the why, and then the what and the how. But that why is really important, and that's the power of narrative. So my question after that long-winded commentary was, what's preventing companies to do just that? What's the problem with internet environments where the internal stakeholders are able to create that momentum, that sense of excitement and belonging, to really bolster and reveal a company's culture and core values, knowing that people buy not just what you make, but why you make it?
Well, I think we've seen, over the last, couple of years, we've seen companies sort of start to bring all of those things they've learned about being a media company to their employees. Not a ton of them, but a few of them have done that. The leaders have done that. And I think what's going to happen now, because of that pandemic, we're all forced into rethinking the workforce. So even though you're a global company, you still have lots of people in one place, and we expect they're going to communicate with each other and talk about the company. Now you're moving to, everybody's really kind of thinking through this hybrid model where some people are in the office and some are remote. How am I going to do team growth with people that are in all these different places? How am I actually going to tell my story, because I can't walk by somebody and hear about the really cool thing that happened with a sale that I made or a product that I built? So that's going to force the discussion around, well, what's the vehicle for that? And it's all digital vehicles. It is 100%, the web, social, mobile, OTT experiences, could be Oculus type experiences. You just got to figure out what's the best way to get a rich experience about your company into the hands of your most important stakeholder, which is the employees of your company. And then how do you measure that success? Similar to those, brand companies doing content storytelling, you can't measure that in millions of page views. You might write a really compelling story about something that happened with employees of your company in a country halfway around the world, and then there's going to be 1,000, 1,500 people that read that, that still might be very successful because they might be the right 1,000 or 1,500 people. So within the employee promoter score, you're going to have to figure out what those measurements are, and the executives of the company have to buy into that, and the employees of the company have to believe that's the first place they want to go. When they start thinking about their work every day, they want to go to that media experience that company is putting together.
Absolutely. And I guarantee you, if you created a heat map of employee engagement across the content that you produce, and you map that to retention heat map, and I may be wrong, but the electrical engineer mathematics in me says the probability of most engaged being most loyal, highest retention, will be the proof point that any CEO needs to recognize that the companies that do well in terms of engaging external stakeholders, operating as a media company, will have the largest lifetime value of a customer, largest employee retention, largest advocacy through NPS, CSAT, SPS, whatever the metric may be. It just seems like common sense. I just don't think companies are digitally mature enough to create that correlation and have the tools. And it surprises me because I would think even human capital management software like Workday should have machine learning models that measure retention based on engagement and correlate those things. And the last thing I would say is that it's a competitive advantage because in a world that's distributed and remote, imagine the challenge companies now of hiring talent, because your sexy tall building in the middle of city center is no longer a draw. You can have talent work from anywhere, which means you've democratized all companies and physical location is no longer a perk. It's that digital engagement across multiple channels that's going to draw talent into your business. So I think it's a massive competitive advantage the sooner you can, build that media company muscle. Sorry, Ray, I didn't mean to ramble. But.
It is a lot of muscle change, though. It really is, right? When you think about the things that need to go into changing that muscle, because it's feeling comfortable telling that story, it's feeling comfortable talking about the company, it's actually engaging with employees on a way more regular basis through simple things like making search a prominent part of your intranet experience and seeing what people type in the box and responding to that promptly. Like, what did people search on today? What are we really saying about that? How easy is it to get them the right information? What are we doing about training rather than just having all that training stored someplace? What are we doing to make sure people are engaged in that and creating experiences that allow people to host and run training sessions? What are the principal great customer experiences that are going on? How do you bring those to life? All those things that you think about when you're building a media property.
Yeah.
How do I bring my story to life? Well, the story is happening every single day at your company. How do you bring that story to life through, push mechanisms, delivering it on a web experience? All that stuff is just a muscle memory change. But once people see the impact of that and hear about those great stories, I think it's going to happen, much quicker over the next couple of years.
My sense is your company is shining a bright spot on areas of friction, removing the friction and creating flow where people can create value at the speed of need. And I love that.
Well, interesting quick story about the name, by the way, is when we sat and we talked about the name and what we wanted to call the company and call the product, the idea of bright spot was to be a bright spot in somebody's day. And that was our customer, that was our employees based on what kind of office environment we had, what we did for them, benefits, how we talked to them, and of course, society and what we give back. So that was the whole concept of the name, was to make sure you were, in fact, a bright spot in people's day.
That's terrific. We all need it. We all need it.
So, hey, I want to take a step back and talk about some of your entrepreneurial experiences and some experiences in the DC metro area. And it's really just to take a reflection on where startups have been and where they're going. So we've seen a lot of advancements in the area and the tech community in the DC area. And part of the show is really talking about, trying to highlight some of the cool things that are happening. How do you rate the tech community in DC today? It's gone further away from telecom, gov tech. Has it gone into other areas? Are you seeing a lot of support among entrepreneurs and startup founders in the area?
I'm actually not from here, although I am now. I've been here since 1995 when I came here for AOL, and I think it's a great place to start a business. I think there's a lot of high quality talent here. It's a great place to live, and it's very receptive. There's a lot of people that have done well over time, that are trying to help people start their businesses and do the right thing. You've got great university systems and people that just want to live around, around this area. So, hopefully nation's capital is a relatively good place to live over the next few years. But it's, I think it's a great place to start a company.
That's terrific. Wonderful. David, my last question, take us, and I asked previous guests the same, what would collaboration platform look like in the next 5 years? What can we anticipate to see that, it may not be on our radar today?
Well, it's sort of funny. We were chatting about Clubhouse earlier on. And I think
we'll have a special announcement later.
Well, it's not my product, but I think that the idea of talking and communicating and doing it in real time versus it all being text and kind of offline is I think going to come back in much more interesting ways. And I think the fact that the pandemic disrupted the way that we think and the way that we work, I think the investment that's going to happen into driving virtual experiences that feel like you're next door, there's just going to be much more interest in bringing that to life. Like, what's a real event look like that's not just a bunch of things plastered on a computer screen? The idea of Oculus type products, like what's going to happen really with AR and VR now that you can't. There's something more disruptive is going to happen in our health life for sure, and that, we've seen it. So I think that investment is going to change the way we all communicate and collaborate and drive innovation in those areas.
I agree. This is great. Hey, thanks a lot. We're here with David Gang, CEO and co-founder of Brightspot, and you can follow him on Twitter at Gangaroo. We'll join you later in the back in the green room after the show to catch up. But thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for sharing the experiences. And we're going to see if we're internal collaboration, employee experience, content management, and intranets all come together. So thanks a lot.
Ray and Vala, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate your time today.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Ray, episode 223.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, no, honestly, just wow. It's an hour of expanding our minds. And next week, episode 224, we're getting closer to our 700th interview over the course of 5 years. Our first guest will be Paul Daugherty, Group Chief Executive Technology and Chief Technology Officer at Accenture. On the 17th, Accenture will publish their annual report of Tech Vision 2021. And Paul will be there as one of the principal authors speaking to us about the report next Friday. Deb Mills-Schofield, Strategic Innovation Consulting Venture Capitalist, Mentor, and Advisor. Deb is one of our favorite guests. She mentored women executives at Brown University and is a venture capitalist and an educator and just an incredible person. And Wilson Pang, Chief Technology Officer at Appen. That'll be our episode 224 next Friday. Ray, closing remarks and perhaps a special announcement in terms of what we're going to experiment next week with Disrupt.
Yeah. So first of all, hey, this has been wonderful. What a crazy week. A lot of interesting news and some awesome guests as always. So we're going to be on Clubhouse for fun. We're going to do a little open Q&A with fans, guests, folks that we'll bring into the conversation. And that's going to happen at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific next Friday, the 19th. So you get a chance to kind of catch up, talk to us, get a little bit of our thoughts, hear how we kind of prep behind the show, and all that will be available at 10 on Clubhouse. We'll set up the club room and you'll be able to join us there. But more importantly, what's going on in your world? What's changed over the last week or two? So.
I've had incredible customer meetings this week with some of the biggest brands in the world and across maybe a half a dozen different sectors just this week. So again, beginning of a calendar year, companies are looking to really tackle big projects. And I've had the fortune of speaking to several CMO, CIO, CDO, you name it, an array of titles with some really super interesting companies. So it's amazing how much culture is part of the conversation because they're going through some significant change management. Companies are looking at things now as necessity, not nice to have. So they're leaning into my company, Salesforce, to really accelerate these projects. And so I think 2021 is going to be as significant as 2020 in terms of continuing to change and digitize across processes, relationships, insights, products and services, new business models. There's so many dimensions, and depending on the maturity of the company, the conversations are going everywhere. So anyway, that's great. And as far as Clubhouse, let us know. I mean, you know, we're thinking 30 minutes because we have to get on the show before the show, half hour before. So let us know if half hour is enough for us to have a conversation. If you need to start earlier than 10, when we announce, you know, let us know if you want to have a full. We're talking about podcasting lessons. We've done 5 years of podcasting. We're getting average of 30,000 views a show. So I think we've made a lot of mistakes, but we've learned a lot and are doing some good things. So Ray and I want to share lessons learned. And so if you're in the world of podcasting, I think you might learn something, and we may learn from you for sure. So I just want to make sure we don't cut off the discussion half hour, because we have a hard stop half hour before our show goes. And the times that Ray are talking are Pacific time. So by 10:30 Pacific, we need to transition to DisrupTV show. So let us know if that half hour is sufficient. If not, we'll pull back another half hour and be there with you for an hour. I'm going to defer to Ray. He's the Clubhouse expert. I'm a rookie.
Not at all. Not at all. But yeah, so we'll see you there on Clubhouse, 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific on the 19th. Ask your questions about podcasting. Also come by and say hi. So we'd love to hear from you. And if you don't have an account, sign up. I think there's a slight waiting list, but let us know. We might know someone to be able to help you there. So, but hey, this has been great. We've talked about all the big issues that are important to executives this week, from leadership to customer success management and employee experiences. Stay tuned to us next week. If it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Follow us at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern every Friday. And happy Friday, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.